Hello, everyone. So this recording took place after the hearing decision, the case summary. So if you haven't done so, you have to check out everything that took place before this first, and then you know, with the recording itself, it took place with the vice president of the university. So it was supposed to take place with the director of student life and success, but the university ended up promoting him. So when this appeal and everything happened, the university actually ended up breaking their own policy to have this meeting set up for a decision regarding the appeal. So even with the appeal itself, this is not a hearing as it was supposed to be. So I did not get a chance to have a hearing. This ended up being a meeting with the vice president. So following this meeting, a 5-page justification was sent out from the vice president of the university. So it was a vice president typing a 5-page document for me to justify why the decision of the hearing decision or the sanctioned outcome was correct from their perspective. So that was very surprising for me. I'll make some more points about that at the end of this video. But for now, I'm gonna let this play through, and you guys can take a look at it yourselves. So yeah, I'm just letting this play through all the way. I don't want to cut out any parts. This is just me waiting for the vice president to show up.
No,
Hey Brad, how's it going?
it's going well. Listen, make sure I'm pronouncing your name right. Is it Edishan?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, very nice to meet you,
Yeah.
Edishan. How is the afternoon, man?
It's good, man. It's cloudy weather today.
Are you in Niagara or somewhere else?
No, I'm in Mississauga.
All right, I grew up in Mississauga. Whereabouts?
Heartland,
Harlan. So a bit south. I was caught in the Queensway.
Queensway. Oh, nice. Yes,
Yeah,
I usually don't come to campus often. It's a little bit of a drive. So for
yeah.
class, I try to attend online as much as possible. But I do come, like right now it's a little quiet, but
Yeah. Do you have
as usual.
any spring courses then? Spring summer courses?
I was gonna take spring, but then with the stuff that was going on, and then I was traveling too, so I held off on spring. But I might be taking some for summer.
Yeah, like in the next month or so.
Yeah, definitely.
Hmm.
I thank you, Brad, for asking my name because last time these guys were butchering my name, and then they told me to do a professional communication after that. It was
Right.
pretty interesting.
Well, one of the things I'm hoping that we can do today is just talk candidly, right? I'd like to hear about your experience, of course, and I've reviewed a lot of the materials that were shared. But at the same time, it's more of a chance for me to hear from you. I'm not considering this an appeal hearing, right? So just to give you a sense of where I am in the process, one of the things that I need to do is determine whether or not, to receive an appeal and then decide what comes next. But at the same time, Hashem, the as I see it, there are a number of things that have already been completed and done. So again, one of the things I included in my note back to you was, what are the outcomes that you're seeking? And again, we can talk that through and kind of confirm my understandings and those sorts of things, and then we'll decide what next steps might make the most sense. But again, very much intended to be a two-way conversation. I'd like to hear some of the challenges you experienced, and certainly I'll be listening for ways that I can support. But again, just to give you kind of some comfort in understanding that I'm doing as much listening as I might be talking today.
Okay, I appreciate that. And with you were saying seeking outcomes, right? I don't think I'm seeking outcomes here. Like, there's like for myself, these are outcomes that should, first of all, the hearing shouldn't have happened. And I did mention this in the letter as well. Like, these were unsubstantiated claims, and then they ended up making a hearing out of it, and then charged me on that. First of all, there was the law quoted. The law was quoted, so they overruled the law with the policy.
Yeah, a couple things. Just as I'm listening, one of the things I'm prone to do is make notes. So at different points, if you see me looking up and looking down, that's because I'm writing and listening at the same time. But you have my attention. Some of the things will be reflective of procedures that have happened. I'm also interested in hearing your thoughts on procedures as they should be or could be. So again, it's a chance for me to kind of hear your experiences, but also some ideas on how to make the processes more student friendly. All right.
So Brad, you were the director of student affairs. Am I right? Sorry, not student affairs. Student life and success.
Right. So my title has actually recently changed, and so I'll make that as well. So.
So I'm like super confused. Like, I'm not saying that you're not qualified for the title and stuff, but at this time it's actually really confusing for me looking at it from my perspective, because it just seems like, you're trying to run away from not you, or like the university is trying to not make you look like the boss of student affairs, because this entire student affairs team was involved in this issue that happened.
So one thing I do have to point out that at this point there was a lot of stuff going on. The hearing, the Grand Iftar and everything. There was a lot of people attacking me and everything too. So I was quite bold in approaching things, because I was tired at this point of the two-faced politics and two-faced games that everyone was playing. So that at some points you may notice that I do get a little aggressive, trying to get some points out, trying to hear the truth behind what's going on. So yeah, I did have to point that out.
Right. So Adishan, just maybe to pause there so we can make sure that we're hearing each other. I am
definitely. I'm trying to hear you. That's why I'm not like letting you speak as well, or else I would just be talking. I'm trying to hear.
Thanks. That's good. That's good. I'll aim to do the same. So again, the way that the code of conduct is set up, there are procedures in place, and certainly at any point, there are mechanisms and people on campus who can help to answer questions. So, whether that's the university ombudsperson or the like. Again, that's to help make sure that students are well supported as they go through. As I interpret the situation, and again, clarify with me if you're seeing it differently, you've requested an appeal of a decision that was rendered by the Student Affairs Office, and yes, that office reports in through me. The appeal is grounded in one of three grounds, right? Either that there is new evidence that comes to light that was not available at the time of the original hearing, that there was bias in the decision process, or that procedures were not covered to the extent that the outcome of the hearing was substantially affected, right? In the appeal letter you introduced to me, what you asked me to do was to go back and find that information, right? Because it's all available. And again, I'm quite happy to have received that letter, of course. But what I'm going to be talking about with you today is kind of what the next steps are that you're seeking, because in part, my goal is to make sure that those are met. Perhaps that's through kind of continuing the formal appeal and me rendering a decision in that regard. But perhaps there's something else that you were seeking, and helping to understand and kind of have that conversation with you is one of the goals I have for this meeting. So I don't intend to confuse you at all. I'm certainly positioned and willing to make a decision. But part of this was to get a better understanding for what it was you saw as the appropriate outcomes.
You know, for me, Brad, it was a little surprising that you didn't, like, you know, when you said you didn't know anything about this and you're reviewing, and then, you know, it took 10 days, you know.
Sorry, let me just clarify. I don't mean to cut you off.
Yeah.
I didn't say I didn't know anything about this issue. I'm not sure where.
Sorry, I meant that you'll say you'll review, as in like you didn't know about it. So it was implied that you didn't know about it.
Okay, so again, I don't mean to parse details. So, are you asking if I knew about the decision that or the outcomes that you brought to me?
No, but when this issue was going on, so you know, that's what I'm saying, right? You were the director of student life and success, and then how your team, like in student affairs, reports to you. Do they not report to you?
So there is a reporting line between the department, the student affairs team and myself, but there are reasons why I'm not involved in the actual decisions and hearings, right? I'm meant to be separate and apart from those because the appeals come to me. So again, I
That's fine, but I'm asking if you knew about this when it was going on or not.
right. So again, I'm interested to know when you say this, what you're talking about, because I'm aware of the process and certainly I've reviewed all the materials that you put forward, but
I'm asking,
not
like,
sure
were you aware that your team was, you know, going over this case and unjustly going after me for running in the student
Okay.
politics?
Sorry, unjustly going after you for going into student politics?
Yes, for running in the student politics as for the presidency and, you know, dealing with the political tensions that were happening there. They came after me for that. Were you aware of this or not?
Okay, so I don't think I can answer that question in the way that you're asking it, because I'm not sure that going after you because of your involvement in student politics is what brought us to this point. Again, that's
I'm
your
pretty sure that's what it was because this issue, the initial case, like, you know, if you read the incident report, it had to do with exactly the student politics. It had nothing more to do with that. Nothing more, nothing less. You know, the student that was involved, he's actually a part of the student union right now. So it had to do with student politics. I had nothing else to do with it.
Okay, so as I understand it, and again, I've read the incident report and given it consideration. That was brought forth because of what was perhaps characterized, or I might characterize as interpersonal conflict between two Brock students, right? And a request from one student that communications be reviewed because of issues of.
Did he get charged
perhaps-
for harassment, that student?
So sorry,
Like-
Adisham, just to clarify.
So
you and I have-
the student affairs came after me for harassment and threatening behavior. Did they go after him after I explained everything?
Okay, so
And the other
as
group
I-
of students?
okay, so as I was saying, this process right now is involving the matter that you brought forward in appeal.
Yeah.
Just the same way that I wouldn't talk about this matter with another student because it's your matter, it's your involvement. I wouldn't do the same in reverse. So I can't answer that question at this point, Edison,
Sure,
out of respect.
that's fine.
That's very interesting because, you know, some of these students that actually slandered me and, you know, came after me, the students that slandered me and came after me, they're actually working for the university right now. And, you know, it's some of them have even graduated and got away with what they got with everything that they did. So the university didn't go after them. They came after me for one comment that I made to a bunch of students that were harassing me.
Right. So if we come back to the reason that this came forward to a hearing, as I interpret it, it's because of communications between two students, one of which raised concern through campus security services, and subsequently there was an investigation and a hearing. The outcome of the hearing is what you're now appealing. And so
No,
again,
the hearing itself is what, I have an issue with, and that's what I'm telling you. This shouldn't even be an appeal. I'm reaching out to you regarding the entire case itself, not the hearing and the
so then come
procedural
back.
fairness.
I understand. Thank you.
Yeah.
Come back to then what I raised at the front end, which was this is an opportunity for me to hear from you as to the challenges that you experienced in the hearing, so that as I now think about the process that we have in place to help students navigate challenging situations on either side of that equation, we can make improvements. If it's not the actual outcomes you're appealing, then I would very much again
I'm
think
appealing the
that.
outcomes as well. Yes, definitely. That's part of it. But Brad, what was I saying? I forgot my point. I can't remember. But we were discussing about having supports and stuff as well. Marla actually, her last email to me, she actually, after I wrote an essay, and you told me about this, right? If someone goes ahead and writes an entire essay about you, saying like all this messed up stuff that happened, are you gonna go and try to support them? So that's what happened. And then, she was trying to support me by telling me to reach out to these people, ombudsperson was there as well, mentioned
Right.
in that. So we're talking, she's like, it's a third party ombudsperson. Busu is a third party. Busu is a third party, but they actually came after me for going to Busu. So why should I trust the ombudsperson or any other party? And then, you were the boss of student affairs. So student affairs reports to you. So how is it that you wouldn't know of this stuff happening? Or, if you knew about it, then why didn't you stop it when it was taking place?
Okay, so Edisham, just to clarify, I am more than happy to kind of receive your concerns and will answer whatever I can to help perhaps increase your confidence in the process.
I have no confidence in the process, Brad. I'll be honest with you.
The,
Another thing that happened was the president.
sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Hopefully, you won't mean to do the same. Let me just perhaps finish the thought. So again, one of the mechanisms that's meant to ensure the process is effective is the opportunity to appeal. So I'm open to hearing your rationale for why the decision that was rendered was not either appropriate for reasons of bias, appropriate for reasons of procedure, or because you're bringing new evidence that wasn't available. That's the grounds in which appeals are heard. To some extent, I had to read through your letters and look for those reasons. And so part of my wanting to talk with you further this afternoon was to hear from you as to kind of the experiences you had through the process that led to one of those three areas, so I could properly adjudicate your request. At the same time, as I mentioned earlier, the two outcomes that were given in this case, first being the educational essay and the second being probation. Again, the educational essay, as I understand it, I've got it here, has already been written.
Yeah, it's a
So,
mockery. It was a mockery.
but
It was so disrespectful to ask me to write that. Like, look, we're having professional communication right now, and I've written the essay professionally as well. And before that, I was dealing with the student union challenges professionally. So it was super disrespectful for them to ask me to write that. It was insulting, to be honest.
so again, one of the questions that I ask myself is, to what extent is the concern about the student affairs process that went forward and perhaps contributing to or perhaps separate from is the issues with the Busu election, one of which I have more purview to than the other. So again, Edisham, this is not meant to be a confrontational conversation.
I'm
I'm
not trying to
certain.
confront as well, but the facts are there, Brad. The facts are there, and I'm talking. That's why I'm mentioning all of these to you, and it is, you are involved in it as well from the other side. That's why it doesn't seem right at all, and there's no reason to trust the procedural fairness of what's happening. Even the appeal. How can you ask the appeal to be done to the boss of an entire team or
Right.
group that got it, that
But
collaborated
again,
together,
coming
have
back to
information regarding that as well?
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that comment. I mean, earlier you asked me to what extent I was aware or familiar with, and as I mentioned in response, the idea is that I'm not involved in those decisions, so that I can reasonably hear an appeal. Again, I wasn't sure that that was a satisfactory answer to you. So
I didn't get that point. Could you repeat that, please?
like I said, the judicial process that is facilitated through student affairs is separate and apart from my role, right? So when
But
an
the
appeal
team still
comes,
reports to you, do they not?
well, again, on some level, a lot of units on campus report to me. That doesn't mean that I'm involved
So
in
the
their
entire
day-to-day.
team, they're facing an issue. Daryl also, he's the one who signed my letter, the associate director. So none of them reported to you about this issue that was going on. And they came after an executive in the, I was running for president and stuff. They did not mention this to you, or no one in the university knew about this when these guys were doing this.
Tell me more about your involvement in the election, Adisham. I wasn't familiar, so I'd like to hear more about that.
I have to point out that the vice president of the university, there's sexual assault allegations and stuff going on in the student union. The university changes its entire policy, and then the candidate who got accused gets legally proven innocent through an investigation. And the president is saying that they're this is happening. Vice president is saying that this is happening at their university, and they don't know anything about it. They don't know about the presidential campaign that I ran and stuff. And then now they want me to sit there and explain it to them, pretending that they don't know.
So, there were sexual assault allegations on certain presidential candidates. So they stopped running, and then I decided to get involved. I tried to run. I can't explain it within a matter of 5 minutes, 5-10 minutes, because there's a lot of information regarding that. But long story short, I got denied by the student union. They were using policies that were non-existent. So they were like, this policy does not exist, so you can't run. But I actually wrote a letter and everything too regarding why I should be running. What the student union needs. And then I still got denied. And then this group of students who actually smeared the other candidate of sexual assault. He is one of the individuals who actually opened this incident report, and I don't think he's the one who opened this incident report. To be honest, it's the bias that I've seen from the university side. That's why I am I'm discussing this matter right now.
Okay, so tell me more about that part, Adisham.
The bias.
Well, the idea that the actual matter was not brought forth by the student. Let me hear more about that.
Like, I don't believe that. That's what I'm saying. I have no reason to believe that the student was the one who was told to do this. The student was the one who actually initiated this himself. I feel like he was definitely told, and or hinted at to go ahead and do this. And then this case was brought forward. He was complaining about gender and sexual identity, which was completely unsubstantiated. I said, on the same basis, I can say Islamophobia as well, So,
Adisham, who are you suggesting that brought the case forward? Then that part's not clear to me.
I'm not suggesting someone. I'm just saying that this is not something I believe was done by the student himself. Because if you look at the student affairs team, the way they've showed their bias, Daryl signed the letter, and then, me and him have had tensions before. Then I mentioned that to Marla, and then she brings in Alicia, who actually pretended to care about my mental health. And then when that was being called out, they all went quiet. Sorry, they don't all went quiet. They tried to cut me off. They tried to shut me down from speaking about that during the hearing. First of all, they were like, I can raise concerns about the process, and then right after, when I was speaking about these concerns, they tried, they just like, I'm going to stop you right there, and mentioned a few other points as well.
Right.
So
Okay.
why would I, what reason do I have to trust the process, and then the fact that, accepting that the student was the one who brought up this case and claims.
I'm
Like, it
going to
was
ask
initiated by the student.
that it was initiated by the student.
Yeah, like, why should I trust
From
that?
this point, it gets a little strange. It's like it gets very strange in terms of the fact that the vice president is almost trying to put statements in my mouth, as in like say who this person was, put accusations on people who I cannot pinpoint as to who did this, who actually advised this student or like, indicated or told the student to go and make a complaint and then they'll get help from there against me. So it's very strange that from this point, you can start to see things get very strange. It's almost like the vice president is trying to get statements out of me.
Okay, so I'm going to ask outright, just so I've got clarity. Um, is it your contention that student affairs brought the issue forward? Like
Not
that's part.
necessarily student affairs. Someone else did. I don't think it was a student himself. He was given an idea and then he went ahead to do this. Support from the university bias.
So just to clarify, your suggestion is that the university requested the student make the complaint against you?
Indirectly, I feel that's what happened. I'm not saying that it is what happened, but I have really strong indications and feelings to as to that is what happened based on everything that took place.
Okay, tell me more about what leads you to have that feeling then.
I just told you, like, the emails with Daryl, and then Marla pretending to care about my mental health, and then you being the boss of student affairs, and then when the essay was written and then sent to the board of trustees as well, then you get moved up to vice president, which in this situation is pretty confusing to me as to why that happened. It's almost like you're not directly trying to be the boss of student affairs. That's what it looks like. And then
Let me just clarify. I don't mean to cut you off, but let me just
Yeah.
clarify a few things. So again, I just want to ask: are you suggesting that I was put into the position of associate vice president because of this matter?
I'm not saying that's what it is, but I'd like, from my perspective, I'd have no reason to trust anything that's happening. Like, everything that's taking place, it's super.
The best point to summarize this would be to look at the best way to summarize this indication would be to look at how the university student affairs said that the student said that they felt that they were being uh, attacked for their gender and sexual identity. That's an unsubstantiated claim right away. The university should have removed that off the incident report, but they decided to include that in their incident report and try to get me sanctioned for harassing someone on harassing and threatening someone on their gender and sexual identity, which is totally unsubstantiated because their gender and sexual identity was never brought up at any point during the entire case, or sorry, during everything that led up to this.
Super confusing.
Okay, I will say this, Adisham, and with full respect, I fully trust what it is you're saying to me. Again, that's my starting point in talking with you, and so as you're speaking, I'm receiving that information and listening and accepting it as important thoughts that you're trying to share. I'm telling you that that's the same approach I'm taking as I talk now with you, and I would hope that you could receive those in the same way. I think that's a very good place for us to start on as we move forward, and I certainly would hope this isn't the last time that we get to speak. Although certainly I would like to talk about and have a chance to hear about your student experiences beyond this. So again, I'm letting you know I have a keen interest in this matter, of course, but I also have an interest in your success as a student. And so I would, having, again, a significant experience with the student affairs team, I would specifically say that if Marla or Alicia offered you help personally to navigate challenges or get help with any sort of wellness, that was a sincere offer.
No, it wasn't.
Okay, well, I'm
Marla disappeared for 13 days
So
or
after the
14 days, I
declaration,
should
it
say.
was Alicia who disappeared for 14 days, and that's the proof for that has already been put out. And I'd also want to point out that, I actually do respect the vice president being super polite and, respectful during the meeting. But at this point, there was a lot of politics involved too, as, the sanctioned essay was written out against student affairs. So it was almost like a move done against them. So they realized at this point that, they have to play it safe and they have to play it political. They cannot just, try to pressurize, use their regular pressure tactics in order to get me shut down. So that's the reason. And, there is still a lot of, there's a lot of pretending that they don't know what's going on. And then there's also a lot of pretending that, uh, you know, there's a lot of pretending that they don't know what's going on. And there's a lot of pretending that they care so much about students and so much about me and what I went through. Uh, so I did have to point that out, that there was a this was a better meeting, but at this point, it was going up on the higher levels, with the vice president and president after on and stuff. So things were very subtle. There's a lot of subtle communications, a lot of underlying messages in there as
Right
well.
when I was talking to Daryl about, so first of all, she reached out to me about, mental health services and all that, and that she wanted to talk to me for support after reading one of my initial letters. And then it wasn't to her, it was like to Brock students, right? And then after that, what happened is, I was talking to Daryl about sending out emails to, communicating with students about the issues that were going on. And then I mentioned this to Alicia at the same time as well, and she disappears for 14 days, and then she replies after, when I wasn't messaging anyone. Daryl was emailing me too. I wasn't replying to him, and then she comes and emails me, and then she's like, "Sorry, I was sick," or something like that. And all of a sudden, she cares about my mental health the moment I don't communicate with anyone, and she gets sick. She ends up getting sick. So tell me, how would, for 14 days you get, all of a sudden, this was a matter, this was within hours, so she emailed me, I emailed her back regarding, regarding communicating with Brock students, and then her reply came 14 days later, even though it was sent within hours. So tell me, why should I trust that she cares about my mental health? She's only pretending to care about my mental health, and it's pretty obvious. And then this was a collaboration done with the entire student affairs team, and you were the boss for it. And now you got moved up to vice president. So I actually want to ask you, who's the director of student affairs right now? I was just wondering.
This is a little bit funny over here, where you know it's almost like looking for approval in order, like, there's so much silence, there's lack of response, there's not knowing what to say. And then all of a sudden, when I say there's nothing wrong with that, it's like, yeah, yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. Almost like, yeah, but they're actually, it's actually a breach of university policy in reality. So the vice president, they got moved up at a time when, there's an ongoing appeal process that can potentially harm the university policy or breach it. So at that time, the vice president gets moved up, and then there's no one in the student affairs director position. And then, I'm having my appeal meeting take place with the vice president of the university. And it's also important to note that the director was actually a board member in the university as well. So it could potentially harm the board if the director of student life and success was associated with the student affairs team, who got exposed for their collaboration. So it looks like that was the move done in order to protect the reputation of the board and the higher ups at the university.
Sorry,
So,
not student affairs. I mean, student life and success.
right. So I'm happy to answer that question.
Yep.
There's nothing, um,
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with it. I just want to find out.
there's nothing wrong with that. So again, my first day in this new position was June the 6th. We are in the process of putting in place our interim plan for the director of student life and success, and my goal is to have that person in place before the month is out. That's not an atypical transition timeline at Hashem. I'm very much looking forward to this new role, but I can assure you that uh, uh, it was in no way related to this case. I'm not sure I quite understand your inference there, but
Okay, look, another thing that happened was, Marla, I was talking about this earlier. Towards the end, she was telling me about supports and stuff, and she tells me to email the vice president Anna, right? And she was saying that this is another person I can report to along with you. And I didn't report to her. I didn't follow through with any of the stuff she mentioned. And then I see next thing, you get promoted to vice president. So, it was almost like she was asking me to report or email someone else so that they can come in and then be like, it can be perceived, or Brock University can show that they were the ones who, or the leaders, the higher ups went and then solved this issue when they came across it. When they got a chance to deal with the appeal. But I didn't do that, and then now I see, you get promoted to vice president, which is, I'm not saying you're not qualified. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying you're not qualified.
I was not expecting that this would be one of the things that we talked about. I'm certainly happy to talk about it, but I'm just not sure. I'm just not sure that I see the same.
But by the way, Brad, I still want to congratulate you for moving up, your promotion. I'm not saying that you're not qualified, as I mentioned, but from my perspective, this is what it is. This is what it looks like.
Okay, but just again, I'm very much interested in understanding the implication there. So.
At this point, I don't understand how the vice president of a university does not understand what I'm trying to say. It looks more like they're attempting to deny, and they didn't expect this to be a point that was going to be brought up during this meeting. But everything regarding this has been posted as well, and it's crystal clear how the university is willing to breach its own policy in order to protect their higher ups from whatever was done at the lower hierarchy of the university.
Help me to maybe see your point of view, Hashem, when it comes to the positional pieces here, because again, receiving your appeal and adjudicating on it, that's a natural course of practice.
Let me try to help you. So before I do that,
I could just finish. Let me just
finish
that.
Sorry. Go ahead.
That process is outlined in the code. It's well established and has been used multiple times. It's not unique to your matter or to this instance.
So since we're talking about the case, the process, another thing regarding this is that non-academic student appeals isn't the decision of the director of Student Life and Success final for that, according to the process?
According to the process, that would be true.
So you got moved up, and now you're the vice president. So in a sense, the policy is not being followed, or the process is not being followed. So this appeal could have been, resolved, and then the promotion or whatever could have happened to maintain the integrity of the policy, but that wasn't done.
Yeah, again, I don't know that my interpretation of the policy would be the same.
And then why did Marla ask me to email the vice president of Anna when the decision of the director of student affairs is fine? Sorry, the Student Life and Success was supposed to be final. Why did she tell me to reach out to her as another reporting option?
I don't know the context in which Marla provided you with that guidance. I wouldn't want
context. It was just the essay written, and then she told me to do this as support. So she's trying to support me by breaking by breaching the university policy.
Right. I'm not sure it is a breach. Again, I'm trying to understand your thinking on to why that is. Maybe you can share more about that. Help me to see.
So what specifically do you want to know more about it?
Well, again, it's not clear to me based on what you're sharing. The conflict that you're seeing. Again,
I'm confused, Brad. I'm being honest with you. I'm a little confused right now about what you're asking.
So I'll take a step back and see if I can restate it. So one of the concerns you're raising to me, Hashem, and correct me if I'm hearing it differently, is that Marla making a referral to someone as I assume from your
Another
discussion,
associate vice president.
to Anna Lathrop, right, who was the
Yep.
previous associate vice president students,
Mm-hmm.
that was in some way breaking the policy, and I'm not sure exactly
So the policy,
what you mean by
the
that.
process is where, the decision of the student life and director of student life and success, the appeal decision is final for non-academic appeals.
So there are layers in the code, right? And so
What
the
do you mean
appeal
by that?
mechanisms. I'm about to tell you. If you
Okay.
give me a second, I will finish. Okay.
Sure.
So, depending on the outcomes that are rendered, right, the decision that's rendered, if the decision is up to and including suspension or expulsion, the appeals for those matters go to the Director of Student Life and Success, which was the position I'm previously in and still holding until
So wait, could you repeat that? The suspension and expulsion go to student life, director of student life and success.
no, I said the opposite. I said
Yes.
outcomes up to
Okay.
suspension and suspension or expulsion go to that avenue. And when it's an outcome that involves suspension or expulsion, that decision is done through the associate vice president of students, and the appeal
So
mechanism.
this one
is
isn't
different.
this one isn't what's the word this one isn't an expulsion or suspension. So
No.
then why was Marla telling me to email the vice president Anna Thorpe?
Again, without having been involved in that conversation, I can't say the reason why Marla was making Anna's role available to you. I'm presuming it was from
So
a
you're not sure. So I'll tell you what it looks like from my perspective. It looks
That would
like
help.
Anna wants me to email the vice president, appeal to the vice president as well, so that she comes. This is what I was looking from my perspective, so that the vice president, she's the one who takes lead on this appeal, and then it looks like she's the one who talked to the boss of student affairs, which was the director of student life and success. So she talks to them, deals with this, takes the lead, and then solves it. So that, because this case was it was the case summary and stuff, if you read it, you can look through it. Just all that's needed to know this case was a messed up, unsubstantiated case, and this shouldn't be at an appeal, is to look at the policy that was used versus the law that was mentioned in the case summary. So now, how are you going to overrule the law with the policy?
Let
That's
me just
the hard
clarify.
part.
Are you? And again, I have the case summary here.
Yep.
So is it the reference to the Criminal Code of Canada that you're
Yes.
referring to around
Yes.
uttering threats?
Yep.
I have to point out that during the student campus security meeting that I had, which was another hour-long meeting, at the beginning of everything that took place, since the beginning they were trying to come after me and label me, and then as well I was told that I could face criminal harassment charges for speaking about publicly elected student officials who are corrupting the student union. And then I emailed the ombudsperson and stuff, and then that person never responded because the policy was on the line. I used their own policy against them, so they couldn't respond to that, so they sent someone else after me. And then through that, the hearing was started because they sent a very vague email, and then they did not follow up or anything, and then from that they started a hearing, and then from that the appeal took place. So it had to be pointed out that this has been going, the labels have been going on from the beginning, and I was threatened by facing criminal harassment charges, and the person was telling me that they're a peace officer and stuff as well, and I have to listen to them. I was also told that it's not legal for me to record when Canadian law says that you can record to protect yourself, and under one party consent.
They actually did was use the policy to criminalize me through the student code of conduct. When this law was mentioned, that under the law, nothing mentioned here is criminal, because the policy is super vague. It's harassment. The harassment policy keeps being changed every year, or not. I wouldn't say every year, but it keeps being changed.
Every year either.
Yeah, it's not every year, but it gets renewed from time to time. And then it's super vague if you look at the harassment policy and then threatening behavior. They couldn't come after me with harassment because I everything that I mentioned, the case summary, all the screenshots and stuff, they couldn't come at me with harassment, so they decided to put me, in threatening behavior to show that this case was, something that was, something that was substantiated when it really wasn't.
Okay. So again, the offenses that are listed under Section 6 of the Student Code of Conduct are described therein. So there is a section 6.1 that speaks to harassment, and there's another section 6.3 that speaks to threatening behavior. As I've reviewed this decision, you were found not responsible under 6.1.
Yeah, harassment, that wasn't. They couldn't do anything with that one. Or else they would have, they were actually telling me in the hearing too. They thought I didn't have a witness. If I didn't have a witness, they would actually come after me with harassment, saying that there's no witness to say that what I said was true. I was lucky, not even lucky. I planned it and I had a witness, and they couldn't come after me with harassment. So they came after me with threatening behavior just to maintain and show that the process was, they did the right thing by having this process done, which wasn't true. It was unsubstantiated claims.
Right. So as threatening behavior is described in the code, creating a condition which endangers or threatens the health or safety of themselves or others.
Right? That's super vague. Is that not vague? You tell me, Brad.
Well, no, I don't personally think it is vague, but
what about the law? Could you read the law then, the criminal code that I quoted on the case summary?
Well, again, I think there's a distinction that I should draw here, right? This criminal code the code of conduct is an administrative procedure. That's different than the criminal code.
So the code of conduct was used when student union politics were going on. There's going to be tensions in politics, and then they just used the vague code of conduct to overrule the law.
So the student code of conduct is applicable to our university setting, right?
A vague one. So anything can be used anywhere by the people in power. Is that not true?
Again, I'm not sure I share your viewpoint on that, but I certainly respect your opinion about it.
It's not an opinion, Brad. It's a fact. The policy is super vague.
Well, again, that's your position. I'm
okay.
Quite open to hearing it. I have a different position on it, and so we have.
Let me hear about your position. What do you think about it?
Sorry, Hashem?
I'd love to hear about your position. Like, what do you think about it?
About the code of conduct?
Yeah, and the policies.
Okay, well, let me reflect back what I'm hearing from you, which is feedback that I will take to heart. What I'm hearing from you is that the code of conduct was not specific enough, and that it was confusing for you.
Here, you have to know it's almost trying to twist and turn what I'm saying. It was not confusing for me at all. I knew exactly what I'm talking about, and I mentioned this point right now as well. But you can see how my words are trying to be twisted and turned in order to make it, undermine my position and undermine what I am saying. It's an opinion. This is it's just confusing for you. It's about my feelings. Just the same thing as how it's been going on in the past with the other hearing and everything as well.
No, it wasn't confusing for me. It's not specific enough to say what is actually a breach of a student code of conduct or not a breach.
Right. So again,
I understood it totally, but anything can be used especially for harassment. Anything can be used to say the student is harassing, or based on the definition in the student code of conduct. The law, if you look at the definitions of harassment, it's very narrow compared to the student code of conduct.
Okay.
And then even threatening behavior.
Edishan, let me ask again. I want to be respectful of your time. I know we had scheduled until 2:30. Mm-hmm. I'm certainly happy to have subsequent meetings if you would find that valuable.
It's interesting that this point is mentioned because I actually never had another meeting take place after this, nor a hearing. Forget about a hearing. I didn't even have another meeting take place, and a decision was made right after this.
So this process being delayed, Brad, it keeps being delayed, and it is a stressful process to deal with. I emailed you, to review, and then it took 10 days to review the case summary and then the incident report, and now I'm coming here and explaining everything again. It doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't feel fair at all either. And I did mention this in the letter too, that the process, is already very lengthy, and now we're going through meeting after meeting. That's not fair.
Okay, so just to clarify, the code allows that within 10 days or as soon as practicable, I'll be responding. I was hoping to use our meeting today, and it has been helpful to understand the context in which you're seeking appeal. Again, the letter that you provided for me and dated May 15th was not specific in saying whether bias, procedural, or new evidence. So I've had to do some interpreting and wanted to use our time together to make sure that I had interpreted in the same way that you were. I'm not sure we're entirely on the same page on every front, but that is where we are. So again, I'm not looking to extend the process any longer than it would need to be. Certainly, my intent is to be fair and reasonable in all my dealings with you, and certainly in the context of any sort of decision I may render. In part, that's why I was looking to understand more clearly the outcomes you were seeking, because
So with the outcomes that I'm seeking through this appeal is that I mentioned this in the letter, I want Student Affairs to apologize for, having me write this disrespectful and insulting essay. And then second, these decisions need to be revoked. And, the decision regarding threatening, that's the only one. It was totally unfair and unsubstantiated, especially the allegations as well. So that decision needs to be revised, revoked for what happened.
I had to point this out as well. The probation, it's interesting that the probation was exactly for a 1 year period. So it's almost like they looked into my records and they know that there's very likely that I'm going to be graduating within 1 year. So they're indirectly trying to tell me that don't be getting involved in student politics for a year, because if you do so, then we can actually sanction you worse next time. So that's what they tried to do with that. And then on top of all of that, they tried to play it off by saying that this is private, no one will know about it. But they didn't realize that I'm going to speak up about my own sanction. I'm not going to let these guys, just because someone is saying that they're going to hide what, so just because someone is saying they're going to come, sanction me and then pressurize me and then hide that, so that no one knows about it, that doesn't mean anything. They sanctioned me, and now I put everything out. So all the information about that has been posted. And yeah, with the probation, it was for a 1 year period. And it's very interesting. They didn't say 1 month, they didn't say 1.5 years, they didn't say 2 years, they didn't say 6 months. They said 1 year, because they know that I'm going to graduate in 1 year. So they're telling me to get out of this. We're trying to protect our university policies and our ideology. Don't get involved in this.
okay. So
And with the bias, I can mention, the points that I was mentioning earlier. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. With the bias I was mentioning, there's the emails with Daryl, and then I told you about Marla pretending to care about mental health, and then Marla being bought. Sorry, not Marla, Alicia, and then Marla bringing
again,
Alicia. Is that not bias?
I have a different opinion from you, Edishem, when it comes to whether or not Alicia was being sincere in offering you help. I'm sorry to hear that that's not how you received it. But I have every confidence that Alicia's offer was with your well-being in mind, and I'm also quite confident that would still stand if there's support that can be provided. So again, I hope that you heard my sincerity when I express that, but I don't think that Alicia was doing anything other than offering help by reaching out.
Okay. Well, I have evidence to say that she wasn't. So, if you have
Can
your stance,
you tell me more about that?
I have emails, like emails that she cared about my mental health, and then she disappeared for 14 days, and then all of a sudden she cares about my mental health again.
Okay. Earlier in our conversation, though, you said that when Alicia reached back out, she let you know that she had been sick.
No, so she said she's sick, but she disappeared for so you're being sick for 14 days within a matter of 4 or 5 hours when the email to Daryl is sent out. sorry, the email to Daryl as well as Alicia regarding emailing Brock student is sent out, and then she replies 14 days later saying, "I can't help you with that. And sorry to reach out. I was sick. Sorry for not reaching out earlier. I was sick." So within a matter of hours, she gets sick for 14 days.
Again, I'm not familiar with the details there. I
So you
need
can
to
ask
look into it
Alicia.
for.
You were the boss of student affairs, so you can ask Alicia about it. So yeah, the boss of students, director of student life and success. Let's see if the team is going to be truthful about it or not.
Right. So again, to know my starting point, Edisham, I'm taking everything that you're sharing with me today as truthful. That's generally my approach in dealing with my staff as well, or anyone else that I encounter on campus. So again, I understand that might not be the perspective that you have in this matter, and I'll reflect on why that might be for either of us. But my starting point in reaching out today and looking to talk with you about the experience you have was coming from a place of caring, looking to resolve this matter in a way that
I
was
do not feel the
satisfactory.
care at all, Brad. I appreciate that you mentioning that, but I do not feel that, there is care for me in this process at all. Especially, with this way student affairs initiated this whole thing, I do not feel that there's any care for me at all. But I appreciate you, mentioning, trying to say that to reassure me.
I'm only saying it to express my thought on it. If that's not how you're receiving it, then that's unfortunate, but it's not the way that I'm.
That's what I'm saying. I appreciate, at least trying to reassure me regarding that. But I do not feel reassured about it.
Okay. So I'm going to take some time, Adishem, and reflect on our conversation today. Certainly, I have a clearer picture for the outcomes that you're seeking, and to some extent, I have a better understanding for the grounds in which you're placing the appeal. I also hear you in what you conveyed, that you're looking to have this matter concluded as soon as possible. But I will also say that I think it's important that I give all of these concerns due thought. So I will look to be back in touch with you shortly. I'm cognizant that we didn't set this meeting up as a appeal hearing, and also reflecting on your various comments around procedural matters. So, pardon me?
So I was saying procedure and integrity matters, same thing.
Right.
I had two questions,
So-
Brad. I don't mean to cut you off. Were you saying something?
No, go ahead.
So, first one I want to ask, if this appeal, the out is there, so what's the next stage at the end of this appeal? If the outcomes are not something that I'm satisfied with. So what happens next?
Okay, so I'll share some of the basics and answer any questions that you might have. So again, appeals are submitted to the Director of Student Life and Success within 10 days. Those are done in writing. The writing must include the basis for the appeal as listed in the code. Again, we've clarified some of that here now, although that wasn't specifically included in our initial letter. Then the Director of Student Life and Success or designate will decide within 10 business days or as soon as practicable if sufficient grounds for appeal exist, and if grounds exist, then a hearing date is established. Right. So that's essentially the space that we're in right now. One of the things that is available then to the director is to investigate further. Again, that's happening.
You know, Brad, if you go in a court system, I do want to mention this. If you go in a court system, you know, you have the lower level court, which is, it's not like, you know, directly related, or the court or the judge of the lower level court is not directly, you know, working under the judge of the higher level or Supreme Court, whatever, you know, as you keep going up. But in this over here, you know, it's like we're being asked to appeal to the boss of the boss of the boss, which makes, you know, it makes no sense, you know, the appeal process, or even the student code of conduct process. There's a
Yeah.
huge issue with
So
that.
again, your comments are well
It's unclear
received.
what he means by your comments are well received, as if I'm saying something wrong, and I need approval in order to actually say what I have to say. This is not even a hearing; it's a meeting, right? So I don't know why I have to have my comments approved in order for them to be listened to. As in like your comments are well received. Almost like approving my
This is
comments.
an administrative procedure, so it's different and separate than the court of law that is beyond campus and in society. I would say that the way that our code is set up and administered is not atypical for university campuses, and yet I also understand your contention that reporting lines are are perhaps from your perspective reasons why the subsequent decisions could be biased. So again, I will give that some thought, but again, I don't think our code is in practice comparative in the same ways that you are suggesting to courts of law. These are administrative procedures; they're different.
Okay, and then I had the other question as well. So it was regarding Rock University's Instagram, right? I actually noticed Busu was tagged in like a left wing poster and stuff. You know, the poster and all that is fine, but why was Brock University, you know, advocating for, you know, super liberal culture, and then having Busu tagged in that when Busu is supposed to be a student voice for all students?
Shem, with all due respect, I haven't seen that post. I'm not in a position to comment on it, but I again,
Brad,
I'm
you
not in
should
a
be aware
position.
of all this stuff going on, man. I'm not too sure how you're not, especially as a vice president now. I'm not too sure how you're not aware of what your team did in the past, or what, you know, the issues, these posters and all that. It's
Shem, can I ask when the post was from?
this was like a few days ago, like maybe 4 or 5 days ago.
Okay, and what was it regarding?
It was what was it? The president of Brock University, she was actually, you know, next to, I think, a pride flag, and I have nothing against, you know, the LGBT pride flag and stuff.
So at this point it gets very weird. Like, the questioning again, it goes back to almost trying to extract a statement out of me, uh about the LGBT and all that, trying to make me say bad stuff about them. um so it's really weird that the vice president would ask me such a question, and I'm gonna play it first, and you guys can see the question that gets asked.
But the fact that Brock University is, you know, supporting this ideology on campus, you know, advocating for this, and then
And sorry,
having Busu
I don't
tagged in
want to
that
cut you
when
off,
Busu
but
is
I do
going
need to
through a lot of
clarify
political,
which ideology are you referring to?
like left wing ideology.
Are you using left wing and 2S LGBTQ rights as synonymous?
So this is the question. This is the weirdest question that a vice president of a university would ask me. Like, trying to get me to say something wrong. Am I using left wing and 2S LGBTQ rights as synonymous? So what do LGBTQ rights, like, where did LGBTQ rights even come from? That was not even brought up. But you can see my response right now first.
I'm not saying to us like, so. Okay, so there's left wing rights. Sorry, not left wing rights. There's left wing ideology, and then there's, you know, there's levels within left wing as well, right? LGBTQ would be one of the groups there, and I'm not saying so. Okay, rights is different from, you know, just having LGBTQ. I have nothing against LGBTQ rights. You know, supporting them.
So I do have to clarify one point though, that I didn't mention in this. Um, with regards to the LGBTQ, as individuals, as there are certain people that attack them, certain people that there's certain levels of violence stuff against them and oppression, and I am totally against that. I am totally with protecting their rights as people, as individuals, and not letting people harm them just based off their identity or expression. But at the same time, I do have to, I respectfully have my views as well when it comes to certain parts of the LGBT where rights get mixed with the law. Rights get mixed with marriage. So the sanctity of marriage being changed. I respectfully have my views on that. There can be disagreements. There can be disagreements to that as well. Me, if I'm saying that I don't support LGBTQ rights when I never even mentioned that at any point in this video.
But it's one thing to support them versus push that agenda on every other student and group at the university.
Yeah, again, I haven't seen the post. I'm not
So
sure
you should
that I
take a
would.
look at it, definitely.
Okay, so I'm happy to take a look at it, and if you send it my way, I most certainly will review. But I am not sure that uh, I'm not sure that I would support a line of thinking that would say that supporting LGBTQ rights is the
I
same as
support
forcing
LGBTQ
another.
rights.
Again, trying to put words in my mouth that I don't support LGBTQ rights. Uh, as I mentioned again, I am against any kind of oppression, violence, harassment, or assault on any individual. Let alone the LGBTQ, and especially actually the LGBTQ as well, because I know that they do get attacked a lot, and they face challenges within their own communities as well. But to mix human rights with something that's not human rights, such as the sanctity of certain religions, not having for example, um, not having pride and stuff within mosques and all that. I respectfully disagree with that. That's my views, and people can disagree on that, I can disagree on that, but we can still help each other and protect each other. There's just because you disagree with someone doesn't mean that you guys are automatically enemies. So now it's really strange for me that the vice president is asking such questions and making such comments and statements, and almost trying to put words in my mouth, and then these things will get written down in the notes, and then once they're written down in the notes, it's like either I am lying or he is lying.
I have nothing against LGBTQ. I want to make
Okay,
that clear.
then I don't think at this point I'll comment any further without having seen the post, because how you're describing it
No, it's
and
just the thing that I see is the university keeps advocating for a certain group or a certain ideology over supporting other groups and all that as well.
The same, the vice president took a picture next to an LGBTQ flag. From the same perspective, I can say that I need a mosque, a whole mosque built on campus. I can say that no, I need a an Islamic flag right next to a pride flag. I need a Christian, cross in front of the main entrance at Brock University. These are all arguments that can be made. So why is university only supporting one group, and not mentioning the other groups? And when it comes to the other groups, such as religions or whatever it is, it's like, okay, so you need to have the pride flag in there, or else the pride flag or some form of left-wing culture in there. For example, with the MSA, the Grand Iftar, the Grand Iftar, which violated the tenets of Islam, you need to have that, or else they won't be able to grow and succeed.
That's what it looks like. And then we see a dominant liberal. It's pretty like it's visibly dominant. There's like a certain culture at the university, highly left wing culture. Um, and then it's not to say that other groups and stuff cannot have their own voice as well, but the moment those voices start balancing out with the other ones, they get suppressed to maintain that status quo. That's what it looks like. And why is it? And then that's why that poster, having the president go and support that and stuff. So it's
again,
and then
as I
tagging
said,
Busu. The biggest issue with that poster for me was tagging. Why was Busu tagged in that? When like did they have something to do with it? I don't. It didn't look like they had anything because they didn't have anything on their social media. So it seemed really, it almost seemed like the university is trying to back a certain student government to make sure that student voices are, supporting the university policies.
Another important point to note is that the current board members who hijacked the student union are full of, far left, students who are. It's not just LGBTQ students; these are like very radicalized political. Uh, there's a very radicalized political left wing drive in the student union right now, in the board of the student union. So most of the board members are filled with like minded individuals who are friends, who have worked together, and who support the university's dominant culture. And the university, in turn, by making these posts and working together with them, is supporting them indirectly. Especially, this can especially be confirmed by the incident report, which was handed out, which included the gender and sexual identity, which was never brought up at any point.
Or university status quo or whatever it is.
Right. Shem, again, with all due respect, I haven't seen the post, and so I'm just not in a position to comment on it any further. I don't think the fact I haven't seen the post suggests anything other than I haven't seen it, and so
It's
I'll
not just a
reserve
matter
any.
of post. I was just, with the points I was mentioning, the post is only one small aspect of it.
Right. I don't know that our conversation today is going to lead us to a point of talking about left wing or right wing politics. That's not the point.
That's not the case
Uh,
either here.
so I think I'll just maybe leave it at that.
Sure, that's
Um,
fine.
okay. So as I was saying before, there are some things that I'd like to think about. I'm certainly looking to find a path where you regain confidence in the things happening on campus. Certainly those which I would have
I would
influenced.
definitely regain confidence if I look at the student government actually work for students and not, the university. That's when I would regain
I
confidence in the
do.
processes.
I certainly do want to reflect on something you said earlier, which is that the student government is a third party. They are separately incorporated, and so I have respect for that distinction.
Brad, can I
Um,
mention you a point?
it depends. Are we talking about your case, or is it more of a kind of
It
a
was regarding this,
commentary?
the student government, third party.
Right? Does it have to do with your appeal request?
Yeah, with procedure, maybe perhaps it could.
Okay. So again, I'm most certainly interested in hearing it, but I would again thinking about where we might go next in our ongoing conversations or with this matter. Let, please do share, but I'm also aware of the time and
That's fine. We can
you
talk
know
next time then. That's okay. If I know you did mention a few minutes ago that you had to leave as well. So, but we did have to get this conversation completed as well. So, yeah, we can talk about it next time. That's perfectly fine.
okay, thanks, Hashem. I appreciate the chance to talk with you today and
I
to hear
appreciate
what
it as well. It was good to meet you.
it was good to
There are
meet you
gonna be
too.
some tensions, but it was definitely good to meet you.
Yeah, I don't. I hope you didn't feel tension. I didn't. Again, I think it's a chance for us to talk through
That's
issues
great.
that are important to both, right?
If you didn't feel tensions, that's great because for me it did feel not tensions in here, but with student affairs and stuff. And before there were definitely tensions there with the decision and stuff that were made.
Okay. As I said, those are the things that I'll be reflecting on, and I will reach out to you early next week with some additional thoughts, and then we'll see in due course what might still be required. But I'm certainly respectful of the time you've already given to the process and the frustration you've expressed with the outcomes thus far.
Thank you, Brad. Could you give me a timeline just before we go?
A timeline on what?
Like when I expect to hear from you, roughly.
Yeah, as I said, I aim to be in touch with you early next week.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you, Brad.
Okay.
Take
Have
care.
a good day.
You too. Bye bye.
So this was the end of the meeting, not the hearing. So this was the end of the meeting, and as you can see, it was very. There were a lot of political responses, a lot of silence, and it's a very there's a lot of underlying and subtle communications that take place during the meeting as well that say a lot about what's actually going on in Brock University. And the strangest part, as I pointed out earlier, the weirdest part of this hearing for me was the vice president of the university trying to put words in my mouth about the LGBTQ and their rights as people, and trying to make me seem like I am someone who hates on them just because of who they are as people, or and that I don't support them as individuals and I don't support their rights. So I had to clarify that, and after that, the points were, the discussion ended off. But you can see how that was a key point, or a key conversation that took place towards the end of this meeting that shows how the culture across Canada, the university, the education system across Canada is infiltrated by these groups and this dominant culture within the universities. And this is why the university system, through this ideology, they're able to govern students, and they're able to govern they're able to govern and control the way they indoctrinate students, and with professors getting silenced, with students getting silenced. There's a lot more to it, of course, but th- in this meeting, this was the highlight, or not the highlight, but this was the key point that shows the reality behind the education system. So this was the end of it, and then it was followed by a 5-page justification following this meeting as to why the decision will be held by Brock University regarding Incident Report 168910.